Chapter 1, The Old Wynyard, by Sky. Once the sun's up, we'll have to run along the beach, said Blizzard. Minnow nodded. What about Sky? Asked Ben. I'll give her a piggyback, said Blizzard. Is the cliff the only way up to the church? Asked Ben. There's the stairway, said Frank. As you know, trolls guard it, said Minnow. And they're vicious, said Ben. OK, we'll use the cliff, said Blizzard. Is there a bunker or anything like that in the yard? Minnow nodded. A wine cellar. Our parents have their game wine stashed in there, said Frank. Their characters always have a glass when they play. The cellar has wine from the Lord of the Rings, said Minnow. Quite a few bottles of the Old Wynyard, 1296, said Frank. Blizzard smiled. The cellar master is Bilbo, I suppose. Of course, said Frank, but we programmed him to go off on an adventure. Blizzard grinned. Just as well. He's away with Gandalf, said Frank. Wow, said Ben. So if we stay inside the game, we could meet them. Definitely, said Frank. The Frankster knows them well. Blizzard grinned. I know the real Gandalf, he said. Wonderful friend. Frank widened his eyes. No way. I'll introduce you, said Blizzard, if we ever reach my realm. Frank looked excited. We will, we must. I love Gandalf too, I said. I'll introduce him to all of you, said Blizzard. Now 6, when we go along the beach, you must stay invisible and fly above us really high. 6 nodded. Shout a warning if you see any danger, said Blizzard. A sudden set of waves ran along the shore. It almost sounded like Desgul tramping towards us. We all held our breath. The run of waves ended and all we could hear was snoring and a few grunts. I can't believe you're a time wizard, whispered Minnow. What made you come to Van Diemen's Island? Asked Ben. I'm hunting a certain kind of evil, said Blizzard in a low voice. The kind that's been after you and Sky for a while. Why us? Asked Ben. Blizzard looked serious. Both of you grow up to be powerful people, he said, so evil wants you stopped. What is evil, though? Asked Frank. Some sort of force? Not really, said Blizzard. Evil usually needs people or some sort of creature to do what it wants. So evil isn't like all the gods? Asked Minnow. No, said Blizzard. Evil is just a stupid thing that came into the universe many, many centuries ago. It wants to be full of power, but it's people like you four that will grow up to be powerful. I can't imagine growing up to be powerful, said Ben. Me neither, I whispered. Well, believe me, said Blizzard, you do. You've seen the future, I asked. Blizzard sighed. And the past, and more than once. I nodded, wondering what it would be like to move freely through time. Blizzard continued. Most people experience time as a long line, but a time wizard can move sideways in time, forwards and backwards too. Ben was hanging on Blizzard's every word. I wish I could move about in it, he said. We all move through time, said Minnow. We're not in yesterday, are we? Ben sighed. I know that, he said. I wish we were still in yesterday, said 6, looking sad. Minnow gave her a hug. Can evil move around in time? Asked Ben. It can't do as much as a time wizard, said Blizzard, but it can cause harm. Ben looked worried. Will we beat it? He asked. If we have enough courage, said Minnow, looking fierce. Ben agreed. We do. What if they catch us? Asked 6. What if they catch only me and rip my wings out like they did to Sky and Jemima? 2 big tears rolled down her face. Minnow lifted 6 onto her knee. Blizzard held 6's hand and said, I've been to the future and I've seen you grow up to become a warrior of a woman. Please don't let this attack make you afraid. 6's face lit up. So we do it, she said. We put ourselves together. Of course, said Blizzard. If this evil has its way, said Frank, can't it change the past? And all our memories? All our futures? Blizzard frowned at Frank. Best not to think of that, he said, nodding towards 6. Better to live in hope. Frank nodded. Sorry, he said. Of course we make it. Definitely, said Minnow. Modifying time is a power that belongs to time wizards, said Blizzard, not to the wretched time virus, and certainly not to the thieves. As if to confirm Blizzard's words, a beam of sunlight burst in through a crack in the door. That should send the Desgul to sleep, said Frank. We just need a few more minutes and we'll have a bright pink dawn. Frank peered through his periscope. They're dropping like flies, he said. I can't see anyone else, so the coast is clear. Checking again? Nope, only sleeping Desgul. Ready? Blizzard nodded, wrapping me in some sort of magic cloak that appeared as he waved his hands. Wow, said 6, touching the soft blue fabric. At least my magic is returning, said Blizzard. As I climbed onto his back, I worried that I might faint. Is your back sore? Whispered Minnow. I screwed up my face. Yes. Blizzard mumbled some spells and I felt a little better. Thank you, I said. When we get out of this game, I'll be able to help you far more, said Blizzard. I smiled. Try to think about being high in the sky, said Blizzard, away from the pain. 6, you too. Fly as high as you can and quiet as a mouse. Unless you see danger, said Frank, then you can shout. Okay, said 6, her eyes wide and anxious. All our hearts were pounding as Frank opened the door. Be brave, said Blizzard. I nodded. There was no other choice. Once we were out of the tunnel, we could see drunken Desgul passed out everywhere, and a fire was still burning. I clung to Blizzard as we crept through the dunes. Frank led the way carefully. As soon as we'd passed by the sleeping beasts, we quickly moved onto the hard sand by the water. 6 flew high above us, invisible, scanning the beach for any trouble. The steady beat of the waves was a comfort, but our ears were straining for any sound of danger. My mind continued to reel from one terrifying thought to the next. What if Isla and Filthy were waiting for us? What if the game had gone rogue and there were fresh terrors? When we were halfway along the beach, the waves began to boom. It was part of their normal cycle, but the sudden change startled us. Blizzard ran faster, and as I bounced around on his back, my wounds were hurting like crazy. When we reached the cliff, Blizzard said, Right, you lot first, as fast as you can. Once the others were on their way, Blizzard started climbing the cliff as if he was a monkey. I held on as hard as I could, miserable that I could no longer fly. Halfway up, we all stopped on a ledge to catch our breath. When we looked down, to our horror, the beach was swarming with Desgul. Over the wind, we could hear 6 screaming. Several arrows whirred all around us. Damn, said Blizzard. We all took off, sending rocks and great clumps of earth splattering down behind us. Riding piggyback, I could see the church tower rising up, tall and sandy against the blue. The smallest bit of hope scratched its way into my heart. Just as Blizzard and I lunged over the lip of the cliff, an arrow whirred past my ear. A second later, I felt a great blow hit my back. I fell to the ground and lay sprawled across the edge of the cliff. In terrible pain, I peered over my shoulder. 2 Desgul were clambering up, only meters below my feet. As they snorted, long strands of mucus fell from their nostrils. I was paralysed with fear. Sky, shouted Blizzard. Stand up. I can't, I screamed.